So I have this spirit about me that's my why. As we've talked about earlier, it lights me on fire. Will I ever reach the end? And there is no end. I realize this. There is no end. I embrace the fact that we protect ourselves so mightily that we restrict ourselves from achieving these outcomes. I don't know that as a younger person, I would have been ready to do the things that I am doing now. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, we needed immediate gratification to survive. And now their kids are gone, and you would not believe the amount of crocheting and canning and crafting that is going on. The key, I think, is to stop and reflect on what it is that you have that you take for granted.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Zishan. I'm very well. Very well. How are you today?
I'm good. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the We Are Mentally United podcast. I really, really, really appreciate that.
It's great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm really pleased to learn about all the things that you're doing at Mentally United, and very excited to share a conversation with you today.
Thank you, and likewise. And to get things started for folks who might not know you, how would you introduce yourself, and can you speak a little bit about your work that you have been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been working in higher education and specifically international student admissions and services for approximately 18 years, 18 years. And in that regard, I've been helping international students achieve their dreams of coming to college in the US. Been on the admission side, been able to travel abroad and recruit students in their home cities and through college fairs and things. And then when they get to campus in northern New York, where I live, at SUNY Plattsburgh, I help them guide them through the process of adjusting to a new land and a new campus and helping them through their college years. Recently, I have had the opportunity to switch, and now I work in graduate admissions at SUNY Plattsburgh. And in that role, I'm doing some exciting things that are related to what I used to be doing. I can talk more about that in a little bit. The other thing that I've done recently, which is really exciting for me, is a lifelong dream of starting a company. I started a business called Catalyst Professional Consulting. I'm the owner and founder of that business. Started that in the springtime. And I am growing a business within that, which includes all the things I'm passionate about, most especially helping people in transition in their life get hurdles out of the way and live their best lives to achieve the things that they may not think are possible, but to be sort of an accountability partner and a guide as you're looking to get wherever next is for you. I am insatiably curious. That is my byline. And my whole career, I've had more than one thing going on at a time. I would work part-time for SUNY Plattsburgh and then also have a career consulting client or two on the side. I am a professional writer. I interview someone in the local Plattsburgh community, a business person, one-on-one once a month, and talk with them about what they've learned and share their insights with other people to inspire them. I also work with high school students who are looking to go to college to figure out how to write a great essay. Right now, how to get a scholarship. They're very excited about that. And now I am the parent of two 20-something young men who I've guided through, one especially their college journey. So now I can see the other side of it, what it's like to be an empty nester mother and the issues that that creates, and then also what it's like to guide a 18-year-old to the important decision of making a college choice and what that looks like for them. So all of that together, it's a complicated mix, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's wonderful. That sounds so powerful because I feel like not just one, but majority or all of your work is around empowering people, helping them reach a platform where they can take the next step in life, whether that be after college, whether that be after school, whether that even be a 50 or a 60-year-old who's thinking about making a career choice. It feels like it's all about empowering people.
Yes, it most certainly is. And it partially it's because that's how I am. That's the spirit inside of me. I think sometimes I wonder, am I never going to be satisfied? Will I ever reach the end? And there is no end. I realize this. There is no end. I
Mhm.
embrace the fact that I'm constantly going to be learning something new or trying to better myself. This is the spirit that I have, and I think I've realized over the last maybe 20 years of my life and my career, this is my purpose. My purpose is to share this energy that I have about constantly developing and growing, not because I want to reach an end point, but because this is the way that makes me happy, that fills my spirit. And I also believe wholeheartedly that every person has everything they need already to achieve the goals that they want. And we
Mhm.
have, in this human experience, we get to the point where we needlessly put hurdles and assumptions right in front of us. So that's why I named my company Catalyst, because Catalyst is a thing that sparks or ignites what's already there.
Mhm.
So I believe you have, Zishan, what's already there. Everything you have that you need is there. Whether
Mhm.
or not you are able to sort through the materials, I mean, in the case of fire, let's talk about wood, right? And paper and oxygen. These are the materials, they're all sitting there. I want to be that spark that allows you to light that fire and achieve whatever it is that you've got.
And I think you are that spark because, like, bringing people, working in the international community, traveling to different countries, bringing students from there to a completely foreign land, I think that requires that 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 is that ignite, that is that spark that helps and sparks up their future. So I feel like you're definitely doing that. And I loved what you said that that is like we all have a purpose or we all have different energies because I work with kids and I provide therapy services to them. And when I'm working with their family members, I always tell them that we all possess special powers and special energies. Like we are all our own superheroes. All we have to do is tap into those special powers and energies or recognize or identify with them. And I feel like that's the work that you do a lot within your
Mhm.
field, whether that be through as a life coach, whether that be in the educational department or in whichever area.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I'm amazed, and you may also have this same observation. When you actually listen to someone, when you give another human being the gift of your 100% attention and presence, sometimes it takes them off guard.
Mhm.
And so many of our conversations with each other, hi, how are you? Oh, see you. And you're walking past one another in the hallway. And we are so numb to that, that doesn't feel like connection. But
Mhm.
if given the opportunity and the experience I'm calling on when I'm saying this out loud is this idea where I meet with this business person once a month, right? And I interview them, and I don't know them at all. I may have seen them at events in town, but I sit down with them and I ask them these really deep questions. Like, what's the most important lesson you've learned in your career? Or what's the best advice someone has ever given to you? And they look at me like, "Wow, you're really interested. Oh my goodness, you want to hear me." And I cannot tell you how many times the person I'm interviewing is so touched that tears roll down their face. And
Mhm.
that makes me even more, it makes me honored to be part of that connection. But it's that idea that people don't see one another often enough. And that's the gift of coaching.
Mhm.
And in therapy and coaching are different in a lot of ways, but they also have this similarity where it's a human connecting to a human. And
It's a genuine connection. It's a genuine
yeah,
connection in that regard.
right, with looking in your eyes and I don't have any agenda other than to listen to you and to help you reflect and say back what you've said to me and ask you questions about that. Is that really what you think? Or is that just the story that you've been conditioned to tell yourself?
True.
And over a lot of different life challenges through my life, I have realized that I spent a lot of time in my probably the first 20, 30 years of my life living in a story that someone told me or that I knew that I didn't question.
Mm-hmm.
And learning to question the story is what I did in my 30s when I retooled my personal situation. Um, and maybe 40s, 30s and 40s, I'll keep that loose. And now that I can see, I can reflect back on that time and I realize that I was living in a story that wasn't true. I cannot pass the opportunity up to help other people see, hopefully earlier than I saw it, that you're
Mm-hmm.
living in a story that doesn't necessarily have to be true. And there's possibility there for you to overcome the hurdles that you think you see and the hurdles that are there.
Yeah, and I think that's what life is all about. I feel like life is all about going through our own experiences, learning from those experiences. As you said, like life is like we are always growing, we're always evolving into a new person every day, or into a different person, or into even a better or into even a better person every day.
Mhm.
But that's what I feel like life is all about at the end of the day, that you go through experiences, you learn from them, and then once you've learned from them, you alchemize them in a way that the others don't have to walk that strained path all over again because you have walked through it. So I feel like that requires a special strength to manage and to manifest that energy into something really transformative, because sometimes it takes a lot of toll on people. And as you were mentioning about learning to question, sometimes it comes with a lot of fear because your
Yeah.
reality could change with that.
Yeah. That's a great segue to what I was just thinking is fear. Fear causes it is the reason why we have these stories, right? It's protecting. We have this human nature of self-preservation and we protect ourselves so mightily that we restrict ourselves from achieving these outcomes, these new things.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to fear, it takes a lot of trust to try something new. And I don't know that as a younger person, I would have been ready to do the things that I am doing now because I've had a lot of life experience. The difference I think that I see and I think that thing that I can help young people with is I had parents. I'm a proud Generation X generation person, and I identify very much with a lot of the stereotypes that people say about Gen X. I had parents who had limited means in terms of their skills to parent children. We did not know was not in the 70s what it started to become in the mid 80s and 90s. It revolutionized. So we were much left much to our own devices as children, and people didn't teach parents how to be parents back then. So
Mm-hmm.
my parents, with all their wholehearted and love, and they did the best with what they had. Ended up, I'm a first generation college achiever, so my parents didn't know anything about going to college. I had to figure that all out for myself and I
Wow.
didn't have role models for that. When I got to university, I went to the University of Vermont. When I got there, I connected with people who did have that kind of support and knowledge. And that's how I first got introduced to the idea that college transforms individuals from more than just academically in this amazing kind of whole life way but I didn't have that growing up. So I have had to forge my path, and I didn't have the awareness that I was telling a story. I was just trying to make ends meet and do what I needed to do. So looking back, when I have the opportunity to talk to 18, 19-year-olds, whether it's in a different country, whether it's in my community or people I know at church, I want to make sure that they understand that there is support and you can go farther than you think. You don't even really know what the landscape looks like.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really powerful. No, I've heard so many stories around people who were first generation. How was that story like for you? What did it come up with a struggle, or was it something that you were really determined to do?
of being a first generation college student.
College student.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, it was around the time where the prevailing wind in society was, if you don't get a college degree, you will not be able to have a quality of lifestyle that will be that you're looking for, right? It was a different time in society in the US. So everyone went to college, no questions. You went to college or you went to, trade school and you just sort of you were going to work a job in a factory and you would have an okay life. It just wouldn't be all that it could be. So for me, it wasn't a choice. I knew I needed to have a bigger life than what I was watching around me. My family worked hard. They're middle class and they did the best with what they had and they enjoyed a good life. I wanted to achieve more. So I went to college. I applied all by myself. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no internet back then, Zishan. So to date me, you wrote your essays on paper and you mailed them out and you waited for your
Hmm.
your reply. And then, going to college, I didn't know what to bring in my suitcase. I didn't know what it would be like. I didn't know about clubs and organizations. I had to figure all that out myself. And because of my scrappiness of having grown up as a Gen Xer, I was able to navigate that pretty well. Today, I think it's different. We as parents, we move a lot of hurdles out of the way of our kids just because that's the way we were taught and the way society is showing us to move things out of the way for these children. As a Gen X parent, I have a little less tolerance for, let's say, my kids not doing things for themselves.
Hmm.
My children are like a durable mug, not a teacup. Like they know that they have to make their own dinner and do their own laundry. Like they know that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of younger kids today are being raised, maybe necessarily because of society is dangerous. It didn't used to be so much. But they're being protected.
Hmm.
So, me being first gen, back to that side of the conversation, I had to figure it all out for myself, and it was hard, but it allowed me the confidence to know that even if I don't have the answer right now, I know how to find it.
Hmm.
That's a key skill. If you don't have the answers, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you need is the skill to find it. And boy, now that we're in this internet generation with AI and everything, it's different. But that skill of cultivating through all the noise of the internet, all the noise of whatever you're learning, books and AI, you still need this human skill of how to figure out what's important and also now how to figure out what's real and what's fake news or what's generated by a robot. But that's a super important skill that I've leaned on all throughout my life. You don't
Yeah.
have to know the answers, you just have to know what's the next step to find it, and then persistence to get to the end.
And I feel like that's something that's lacking in today's time and age, not just with the younger generation, but like even for folks who were born after 2000s. I feel like it's lacking up within them because of technology, because technology
Yeah,
has made everything so expedited that everyone just wants the instant comfort, the instant gratification, the instant, everything's just very instant. If you don't get it instantly, you start getting nervous, you start getting anxious. And I feel like people have lost the art of being patient in difficult times or even trying the same thing twice or thrice and not just
yeah,
giving up when the first time that they fail. Whereas people like myself, like I identify as a millennial. I was born in 94. You are Gen X. So did I say that right? Yeah,
you did.
yeah, you're Gen X. I keep getting confused between Gen Z and Gen X, but like you are Gen X. So like we learned patience. We were taught patience. Like I remember where one major thing that taught me patience was internet connection. Because when internet first came through, it was through that dial-up connection where you had to wait for a specific amount of time for internet to get connected, and then websites would take ages to load. Like you have to literally
Yeah,
sit there and wait for the website to load. And that was
right.
something that really built up patience when I was 5 or 6 years old because I wanted it to happen fast.
Yeah.
Whereas that's something that's lacking in today's time and age, especially in the younger generation.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'll tell you something interesting. I have recently gotten very interested in James Clear's book called Atomic Habits. And in that book, he explained for me the light bulb went off. Lots of light bulbs went off. I highly recommend this book. One of the light bulbs was about the human brain and how m- thousands of, hundreds of thousands of years ago, we needed immediate gratification to survive, right? So you would go and find food because you were going to die if you didn't eat food. And we've been programmed to chase the rewards that are immediate. And when in primitive human life, there were no intense rewards. Like if you wanted to have a relationship with another human, you would have to get on your feet and go find another human. And that takes a bit of effort. But now we have this phone, right? We could take this phone and in minutes, I can connect with 100 of my friends on 5 or 6 different social media. If I am craving connection and belonging, I don't have to go and drive in my car or wait for Sunday and go to church. Even in like the 19, early 19, maybe 30, 40s, that's where community happened. People would
Hmm.
drive to church. Even before cars, they would take the horse. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah,
and while we have increasingly intense, immediate rewards, our brains are still not changed the way we process things. So we're at a disadvantage now. The good news is what I've also learned from this book is that we can hack that system and we can insert something of an artificial immediate gratification reward while we're pursuing those other ones. So, like a good example of this would be if you're trying to lose weight and you want, and that's your goal, like that's the reward. I want to look healthy. If you take the behavior of going to the gym, you can go to the gym every day for a week and you will not see any difference. Right? It's not, it takes a lot longer than that. But an immediate reward, you could create a calendar that has boxes on it. And immediately, every day you go to the gym, you put an X on there. And while it may not seem like much to you, putting an X on there and every day watching the number of X's grow, that's the hack that taps back into the prehistoric humans' need to get an immediate reward. And it makes it just a little bit more satisfying. And taking that framework and applying it to all of the things that I want to achieve in my life, just little tiny, tiny little steps, that's been the game changer for me since I started studying that book this summer.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it gives you that consistency. It gives you that mindset shift that sometimes you really need, having that structure or having that vision board. And I feel like that's really good. And I'll definitely leave a link for that book for in the description of the videos for any of the listeners if they want to download it. I've not read it myself yet, but it's been on my reading list for a very long time. A lot of people have recommended me that.
Yeah, I will tell you. And also, I on my blog in my website, I put a link to I on maybe 10 or 15, I guess, downloadable worksheets from the book because the author
Yeah.
he resonated with me because I am a service first practitioner. I want to be of service to you first, which is why I don't say I am just a life coach or I am a career coach or I am a scholarship coach. No, I want to help you with whatever transition you're happening. So he also is of service first. He has all of his worksheets, many of them, I suppose, available free for download. And so what I've done, I created a presentation that I've delivered locally at several different libraries in Plattsburgh. I have created a space on my blog where people can look and click and download a habit tracker worksheet and an example of the framework that the sort of response reward framework that we do every single day without even knowing it over and over. We're doing it now, in fact. I'm thirsty. I'm going to have a sip of my water. These are all within the same framework. So I'm happy to share that with the listeners too.
Of course, no, I'll also like after the call, I'll ask you for the link for that, and I'll also add it in the description of the video as well. Um, Going back to the work that you have been doing, you've been working with people as we said. Has that was that always something that you wanted to do when you were a kid, or that came naturally to you as you were growing up,
Working with individuals and
working with individuals, working with
yeah,
people?
it's funny you say that because I've always been a very friendly, chatty person. In fact, the reason why I learned French is because I would go to on summer vacation, I would go to this campground area, and there are all these little kids, and they would run around. And I live close to the Canadian border, so lots of Quebec French speaking campers were around. And there are these little girls. I really wanted to play with them, but they didn't speak English, and I got so mad. That is not right. I want to play with you, but I can't. So the only way I could figure out to play with you is if I learn French. So I started learning French, and I just got frustrated. Like I deserve to play with you. I want to play with you. What is in the way? Let's get it out of the way. So that was the beginning of that on the playground as a 7-year-old. But then throughout life, yeah, I have been just inclined to be a good listener, to offer suggestions, and definitely faced my own share of first family isms and challenges in that way, and got inspired to be in college to be a trainer. I was a trainer for families that struggle with alcoholism. The time that I was in college was when the AIDS epidemic was just starting to rear its ugly head. Nobody understood it. People were being ostracized. And so I became an educator with the American Red Cross to learn about that and to help people. I've always had this place in my spirit, in my heart for people who are marginalized in some way. And whether it be, the people struggling with AIDS or other people doing having isms in their life, over the course of time, it has expanded into many different marginalities, and that's probably how I got into international education in the first place. I saw a campus, which I was a resident director. That was one of my first jobs out of college. And I had
Mine
a
too.
residence. Yeah, was it? I
Yeah.
had a residence hall in this rural Vermont community, and I had a student from a country called Yap, which I had to look up. I didn't know. And by the way, there was no internet, so I had to really look it up. And I realized how hard it must be for that person. And that's how I initially got interested in international students and ultimately made a career out of that.
Wow, wow. So you've always been engaged within your community. You've always been ingrained within the community, and have always been working towards the betterment of it.
Yeah, that is true. And it's a burden and a blessing, right? Because as I mentioned when we first started talking, it's insatiable. There will always be people in need. There will always be people who are in transition, and I will always be learning new things. I will never
Yeah.
stop.
And I think
But
that you, sorry.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, I feel like that thought for you probably comes very naturally because you yourself was the first person to go to college, to go to school, experience that all by yourself, figure it out, and then move forward. And I feel like that's some of the struggles that most of the international people go through when they come to this country for education because it's a very new place. You don't know anyone, you don't have family here. You're always trying to figure out what clubs, organizations, anything or everything that the campus is offering you, and it's a very challenging time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's what I did when I got to college. I did not know what it was. And first of all, I have never been in a family that had a lot of extras. So we had enough. I never was hungry, but we didn't have all the things that my friends had. So when I got to college and I realized that I could join every club, I could go to the career center, I could go get tutoring, I could go all these places, and it was, quote, free. I had already
Free.
paid for it. There was no way I wasn't going to do every single thing that I could possibly do during those 4 years of college. And I did. I explored every resource there was. What I've discovered is that it's easy to take that for granted. So lots of US students do not take pay attention to that and they do not take advantage of the resources that are around them and free and available, whether it's college or some other place. But when I started working with international students, I realized that they are exceptionally motivated to take advantage of everything they have to offer. They understand what a privilege it is to be able to go to university and to begin with, but secondly, to be able to do it in the United States. And so consistently, they join the clubs, they become student leaders, they achieve high GPAs. They've just been, I've seen myself in them because of it was new to me when I went, even though I didn't go across the world. I did study abroad in 1989 before
Wow.
study abroad. Yeah, and I had to write to Europe, to France, and call on the phone expensively to figure out what programs I wanted to go to, and it was something else. But that journey that I took as a first generation college student, I see international students as having a similar amount of hurdle in front of them to get to the US to do it. And so when I talk to people who are interested in pushing themselves past their comfort zones like that, that's where I want to be, whether it's international students at a college fair in Karachi or whether it's a high school family here who doesn't know what they're doing to try to get to college and they don't think they can do it, but I realize with a little help they can.
Well,
Or it's a empty nest mom. I mean, I see a lot of women my age, and I've raised my children with them, and now their kids are gone, and you would not believe the amount of crocheting and canning and crafting that is going on when they realize that their whole lives have been dedicated toward launching this baby out of the nest, and now that person is gone, and they look at what they have left and they realize they've not been investing in themselves. They've been living entirely for the support of the other,
hmm.
which isn't it's good nor bad. It's just let's figure out now what your purpose is, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that's the main key, like figuring out your purpose. That's where a lot of people struggle with the right alignment and stuff. But going back to your point, it reminded me of my own experience in undergrad because when I first came from Pakistan to US around 9 to 10 years ago, I remember I was in Yoakum, which is a building hall in at SUNY Plattsburgh, and it was the media department that I was working for, or I was getting my education in. And they had this studio in the basement, which was like a television studio, which had all the like it had a technical director area where you could direct news, where it had all the technical director boards. It had lots of different cameras that we were using. And when I went in there, it felt like heaven because that's something that I've always wanted to do, but did
Nice.
not have access to those means back home. And for my colleagues, the experience was a little different, who had always grown up in the US because for them they were mostly talking about, oh, this equipment is not the latest technology, this thing is not the
Mm,
latest technology. And for me, I would always try and explain it to them that for me this is like a it's a gold mine because like I would have
yeah,
never experienced hands-on experience on professional cameras, on technical director board, directing news, directing TV shows, doing all that real work in college without even
yeah,
graduating because that's something that you perceive that you are going to do when you graduate. So
right.
it's
You know,
two different
I'm
worlds.
hearing in what you said and what I said, it's gratitude. It's
Hmm.
not taking for granted the things around you. And in order to have gratitude, if you already have lots of, I'll call it privilege, I'll use the word privilege, right? If you have already lots of privilege, you can take it for granted easily. I think that's the default. The
Hmm.
key, I think, is to stop and reflect on what it is that you have that you take for granted. And then when you do that, you can have that fresh eyes as if you were a first generation college student or as if you were an international student arriving on a US campus for the first time. It's being able to have a different perspective and have fresh eyes so that you see how much you have that you're grateful for.
Yeah,
A
for sure.
great example of this is it happened to me in 2010 or 12. I think it was maybe 2012. My church, the Peru Community Church here in my town, they have a relationship with a church in the Mandeville, Jamaica, which is high in the mountains in Jamaica, not anywhere near the tourists. And every year they send a team down to build houses in Jamaica over a course of a week. One family, and they build a house from scratch. And I had a chance to join them in that year, 2010 or 2012. I forget the actual year. And we went down there and spent an entire week living in a hotel sort of apartment situation where we would go in the morning to a work site and then spend the day and then come back in the evening. We'd have to bring all of the water we needed to drink. We'd have to bring the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches we made in the morning, everything that we needed for the day. And when I got home, it was a great rewarding experience, life-changing. Probably could spend an hour on it, but I won't. But when I got home, I remember very distinctly going to my sink the first morning and turning on the faucet and grabbing water and drinking it and thinking, wow, how lucky am I that I can go downstairs in my pajamas and turn on a faucet and drink, where I have just spent a week with people who had to walk about a quarter mile or half a mile with things on their back to get water for their donkeys to drink, never mind their family. How grateful am I, and who am I to not show gratitude or think about that every single day? Similarly, going to different countries around the world, I've had the fortune of going to 25 different countries, many of them developing countries who don't have the infrastructure that we have here in the United States, and been able and blessed to be able to remember that time and time again. And that's one of the things that I really value about traveling is it helps you appreciate what you take for granted.
Yeah. And that's something that I tell everyone. I tell everyone that they should do some international trips or they should manifest some international trips for themselves and their families because it leads to growth. It leads to transformation. It provides you a different perspective of life and it gets you off the hamster wheel. And hamster wheel being the daily life schedule things that we constantly are doing because we are running like a hamster on that wheel. And
Yes.
sometimes you can take vacations in the US, which is also really good, really beautiful to do so. But just
Yeah.
having that international exposure, it just is very transformative.
Yes. Yeah, and I think also it's important for people to experience vulnerability in the way of being not like everyone else. So
Mhm.
that is a really important. It's always been important to me, but I feel like it's especially important in society today, where we're so polarized with politics and race and gender and all the issues that we have. People do not spend enough time actually feeling what it feels like to be discriminated against based on the color of your skin or your gender, or people don't know what that feels like. It's really hard to have empathy for how it's happening. And there is no way that I, as a white woman, can come close to the experience of what it would be like to be a person of color. What I can do, though, is put myself in situations like on a bus in downtown Mandeville with a bunch of white people with the little kids walking back from school, and they point out, they say, "Oh, white people." It was super awareness raising for me. Wow, we stick out like sore thumbs here. We're a bunch of we're a bus of white people and these little kids walking home from school in their uniforms and they're holding their book bags. They look up and they say, "Wow, look." Now that's an awareness raising moment, and I appreciate that in the world, white people are treated in a different way generally than other people of color. So even that for me doesn't come close to what it would be like for someone in a marginalized group. However, it was a light bulb moment for me, and I think traveling abroad helps you feel that, helps you feel vulnerable, helps you check your entitlement, if you know what I mean. Like we feel like, oh yeah, when I go to hotel, it's going to be like this, and there needs to be coffee for me here, and I need to be able to drink the water, and
Hmm.
and it's important to understand that that is a privilege, not a right.
For sure, for sure. And I feel like That entails a lot of your work, traveling to different countries, bringing in international students, which often comes with unique challenges, I feel, because many face lots of homesickness, cultural adjustments themselves, mental health struggles
Mm.
themselves. How do you approach helping these students feel supported and connected in when they come here?
The first thing that's important is that initial landing. The initial landing, whether or not, one of the things that I put into place when I was working with prospective students is connecting them digitally on WhatsApp before they arrived. That makes you feel like at least you're not alone before you arrive. So technology has, with all of its faults, has allowed building community before students arrive. So at least you feel like you're not alone. In some cases, they were able to travel together. But then the high touch with the arrival in the first days is super important. So meeting someone at the airport with their bags and making sure that that first experience is as painless as possible because 24-hour travel status makes you exhausted, not your best.
Mhm,
So arriving on campus and then giving space to adjust, but thinking ahead of time about things like bedding and a pillow and your first night's sleep and snack for you to have before you exit. Because a residence hall room on a campus is not a hotel. There is no, there are not the conveniences. And then after the initial adjustment, we would offer a pretty intensive orientation period, a week of time where it's all about making the transition, meeting friends, learning where the stores are, where am I going to get my food, how do I get, if I like coffee, where do I get it, getting all those basic needs met. And then over time, it's about building community and bonding with other international students, bonding with staff, and being available as staff to be a phone call away if there is an issue that comes up. But I think having a support team, which we've always had at SUNY Plattsburgh, a support team that looks after international students, whether it's a weekly class meeting for new international students in the form of like a freshman 101 course, or check-ins with small groups, like having an orientation leader check in on you after a few weeks. That's super important because it's the absence of someone that causes concern. So
mhm,
if you show up every week after week and all of a sudden you fall off the radar and we haven't heard from you, you're not going to class, that's where outreach is necessary. Hey, are you okay? And I think it's similar to people in your life, right? If
mhm,
if you if you suddenly don't hear from someone, it's incumbent on us to reach out to them and say, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay?
mhm, mhm.
Those are the small things.
Yeah. So
But
like sorry.
you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so like building a sense of community for people and keep checking up on them if you feel like they might need so.
Yes, and I think there's a delicate line and a balance with persistence and stalking.
Mm-hmm.
So some people don't want to be approached, and they feel like, oh, that's the last thing that I want to do right now is see another human being. But there has to be a mutual understanding on both parties. The student or the person who we're concerned about, who's saying no, 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 and the continual offer. So whenever you're ready, I'm here. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. I'm not going to go away. I'm not going to stop checking on you. I'm not going to force you to respond, but I will continue to let you know that I'm here for you when you need me. And that is the greatest gift I think we can give each other
Mm-hmm.
is grace for the no, and I'll be here when you need me. That's been a huge lesson of mine I learned in parenting a teenager. That, I know better. I know what you need and what just come out. Just come to this, game night with us and you'll be fine, students. And they say no, and they say no. It's grace and patience and persistence with a foundation of love and service for another human being. And if we all remember that, I think both sides, I will respect you if you say, don't call me again. Like I will. But but I'm not going to stop thinking about you and caring about you. And I think that's the basis for a good adjustment. Knowing people are there and care about you, even if you continually say no.
Right, yeah. I feel like also it's also about because I worked in the international office. I did one of my internship with you folks, and one thing that I learned in that experience was meeting people where they are at.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times some people need that extra support, some people need that extra check-ins on them, whereas some people are like, I've had enough of that in my hometown. I'm running away from it, and that's not something I wanted up over here.
Right.
So
Right.
that's something that I saw when I worked at least for a year for the Global Education Office in Plattsburgh. But in terms of your own work, like being a recruiter, being an international recruiter of all, it comes, I feel like, with a lot of challenges because you're constantly traveling to different time zones, so jet lag can kick in as well. And then also you're away from your own family and you're not just a drive away, you are hours of flight miles away. So
Yeah.
how did you navigate those challenges? Did you come across those? And if you did, how did you navigate those challenges?
Yeah. It's first of all, it's exciting for me to do it. So I have this spirit about me that's my why. So as we've talked about earlier, it lights me on fire,
Mhm.
figuratively, and to go abroad and to have these experiences. So that's the thing that I remember when things get hard, and they do get hard. So in terms of planning, I am a very effective planner and organizer, and I always have been. So I have a set of tools that I've developed over years to help me feel ready to go. And that includes a spreadsheet of packing items and a system to book flights and hotels. Apps that have helped me. TripIt is a great app that helps organize all of the things that you would do. And then having an agenda, I always have a backup plan. So I will share my itinerary with many different people so that they know where I'm going to be. I do enjoy being out of pocket, if you will. I know I will be traveling for these, 20 hours and I will not be available and I'll check in when I can. I enjoy that part because, absence makes the heart grow fonder, if you will.
Right.
In terms of logistics, so traveling around the world as a woman by myself and I usually that's how I go by myself. In fact, I prefer to go by myself. Um, there are definitely challenges. So I want first and foremost to remain safe. And it would be great if I could remain comfortable,
Hmm.
but I have to be willing to experience discomfort in order to get the reward of going where I'm trying to go and having the experiences that I'm having to experience. So I guess the first lesson I learned is comfort is optional. I've never traveled business class. I always travel economy, and I've had a 17-hour flight, one 17-hour flight, um, and 12-hour flights regular with connections. But it's not about comfort. It's about that's an opportunity to exercise, I guess what I was saying, checking my entitlement. Lots of people don't get the opportunity to be stuffed in a middle seat for an 8-hour flight.
Hmm.
And yes, I have to, but also I get to. So it's a shift in how you look at it, to be fortunate to be able to do it. In terms of time zones and family responsibilities, I am a single mother. I have raised two kids, from the time they were about 10 and 12 years old, through adulthood. And I traveled during that time. So I had a team of people who I would engage, friends of my son who he would stay with, people to come and help watch my cat, for example. I would have, entire spreadsheets for what soccer match was happening and how to get to karate and the school assignments that were due, and just sort of pre-plan the entire time I was gone as if I was still here so that I could package it and give it to, say, their grandmother who is helping to stay with us, for example. And then when I would come back, I would also have to pre-plan my experience abroad, right? Making sure I'm safe, making sure I have hotels, food, shelter, transportation, right? These are key, right? Oh, and a cell phone with a battery charger. That's another key. Um, So making sure that the homeland, my home base was going to be fine, also that I would be fine wild and on the road. And then after living the experience, rewinding and making sure everything went the way it was supposed to go at home. And, of course, when you leave an office job, even though you're traveling for work, things happen at the office that you have to keep track of.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge, but it I like the ramp up to it. It just puts me in this mode of productivity and again remembering how fortunate I am to get the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, it requires a lot of organizing, managing, and then also tapping into the support systems that you have.
Yeah, ultimately, this is another thing that relates back to James Clear's Atomic Habits is doing all of this pre-work and being disciplined. It perhaps encroaches on your freedom of choice right now, but what you're doing is buying yourself freedom in the future. So it's an investment in my future self. The discomfort of today is an investment in the freedoms for my future self. It's key to the way I'm living my life in the last few years and in the way I plan on living my life forward.
For sure. I feel like as the more we are talking, the more I'm getting encouraged on Amazon shopping right now and getting that book for myself so that I can.
I want to write to this man and ask him for commission because I am a disciple of this guy.
That's really good. But in terms of, I feel like all of us just have to recognize one thing also, which is that we are all built different. Like
Mm,
some things might click for me, some things might, those same things might not click for you.
yeah,
Similarly, some things might click for you, those same things might not click for me. Like for me, I feel like my brain always works in different directions, so I'm always multitasking in my headspace. But then I need to write those thoughts down, or else the next morning I'll be thinking about something else. If those things are not written down, then I will lose that train of thought and I'll come back to that train of thought probably a week or 2 weeks later. But writing
yeah,
it down just makes it much more easily manageable. Whereas some people just don't need it. Some people just work, 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 and that's
yeah.
how they do it. So I feel like aligning with your energies or aligning with how you function best, I think that's something that's key for people to identify within their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are so unique in terms of what motivates them and how they keep themselves organized. I will say that the older I get, the more I need to write things down. I mean, if I'm walking in the hallway at work and somebody says, "Oh, can we talk about this at 2 o'clock on Tuesday?" By the time I get to my desk, I will have forgotten about two
Yeah.
o'clock on Tuesday. So I look at them and I am open and honest, and I say, if I don't write that down right now, as much as I want to be there at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, I cannot promise that I will. So it's about reckoning with my own limitation and my own preferences to people. Like I don't want to be perceived as a person who can't remember 2 o'clock on Tuesday for 4 minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
reality check, Zishan, is that's where I'm at right now. And maybe it's the age of my life and maybe it's other things. It doesn't matter. I will not apologize for that. I will
Yeah.
say, this is how it is. And I want to help you and I want to be there for you. In order to respect you, I have to write this down right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I also feel like you also have to give yourself some grace because you're working so
Mm,
much, you're working in, and so many different things are happening up for you that it's humanistically sometimes not possible. Like for me also, I see 7 clients a day in my therapy sessions, and
mm,
sometimes some of those conversations get lost, so I have to take notes of those things that have happened just to keep
yeah.
track of those things so that the next time I meet them, I remember those main points to touch.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just a practice on how you can manage those things.
7 in a day is a lot. And I
It's a lot.
think you're not just seeing people with a broken finger, right? You're becoming part of their life for the time that you're with them.
Yeah,
And you're carrying their stories with you in some ways, and you also are feeling professionally responsible, right, to
for sure.
maintain that momentum with them. How do you
Yeah.
do that?
We come in this profession, we come in with the mindset that we want to help people, we want to empower people, not with
Yeah.
how many people we are seeing, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
that's healthcare though, right?
Yeah, that's just the broken system, I feel like, because it's because of insurances, because of the numbers that we
Hmm.
have to reach and target. So it's 7 a day. I have around 60 plus people on my caseload right now. And
Hmm.
sometimes it becomes really, it feels like a factory that you're letting one person in and then that person's going out and then the second person's waiting up in the waiting room and then you're like, oh, let's go in. So it just feels very
Yeah.
robotic at times. It takes away that humanistic element or that humanistic touch that you want to build up with that client because you're constantly thinking about the next one. So
Yeah.
so it comes with a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, I feel like you can still do your work because a lot of these people need to be heard. A lot of these people just need to process their emotions or just need better guidance on mindset shifts.
Yes.
So it comes like with that, but then it takes a toll some days, and
Yeah.
some days are
I
more
can't,
difficult than others.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I'm thinking of a interaction I had in a restaurant recently, crowded with holiday people, like a kind of like a coffee shop where people were coming up to the and getting a coffee, and it was super crowded. Everyone was grouchy. Everyone was having to wait. And this woman behind the counter, every customer who came up, she was exactly as jubilant and smiley and energetic as the one before. Hi, good morning. How can I help you today? And I was in line for a long time and I watched her. And by the time I got to the front, I said, how on earth do you do this? Because I have seen 15 grumpy people in front of me and you're doing this and she said, that's what you have to do. You have
Yeah.
to reset yourself. And I can imagine for serving coffee, it takes a lot of energy, but for you, it takes even more.
It does. It sometimes really does. And it's like those 2, 3 minute breaks that you get. You go in the restroom, you put some water on your face. You're like, okay, next one, we got
Yeah.
it. We got this. And we
Yeah.
have this thing going around in our clinic where we keep reminding ourselves, okay, we got this. Only two more to go. We got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of self-affirmations and stuff that come along the way.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it is incredibly important work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a form of education, right? We're in the same business, you and me.
Hmm.
Whether it's somebody coming to college to better themselves or somebody fixing or working on their life challenges with another human being and dedicating their own time to therapy, we're in the business of helping people be better people.
Hmm.
And that is the foundation, right? A lot of people, like I know people who are engineers and they are computer scientists and they build, buildings. Okay, that's important, but who's doing that? People.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the more we can invest in people being the best people they can be, the better they will be at doing whatever it is they do when they go to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I need people to build houses and I need people to build hospitals and be doctors because I'm getting older and I'm gonna need those people to
Hmm.
do those things for me when I get older. So the best thing I can do is invest in the future of everything and everyone by helping people be better versions of themselves.
Yeah. And I feel like that,
Fortunately, oh,
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
no, you good.
Fortunately, in my work in the consulting business, I get to meter the people that I work with, and I don't work with insurance. So it's individuals who don't need to use insurance to get the help that they're looking for. So in some respects, it is very limited in terms of people who have resources who can do this. And that's why I do workshops and library talks because that's me being of service first. Um, so I do have the freedom to do that and I meet people wherever they need to be. And I don't have any restrictions about, you need to have a diagnosis or I need to bill your insurance or any of that. So that's the one thing I'm grateful for with the consulting that I'm doing. And it seems like in the line of therapy, you have some guidelines that I do not have.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good to have that liberty. But yes, in the mental health field, insurance plays a big role, and
Yeah,
that's just down to the system on how it works. And sometimes it just makes me a little uncomfortable just having to be that way because that's not the reason why I came in this profession. As I said, I came in this profession to help people, to empower people. But then
yeah,
again, at the end of the day, when I'm having my last session or my second last session or even my first session, and I hear a positive story, I hear a parent tell me that, hey, Mr. Z, I haven't seen any outburst, or relationships are improving about at home, or the kids not
Yeah.
struggling that much at school. It just makes all that hard work worthwhile, because
Yeah.
that's the reason why I'm in this field, to make those
Yeah.
little changes in those lives and to empower people. Because I try telling people, like, my work over here is to plant seeds for you folks, but those
Yeah.
seeds will remain dry if you don't water them. So you have to go home, you have to work on yourself, you have to take these actions, or the things that we talk about, you have to think about these things. But or else I'll just be planting seeds and nothing's gonna happen, because I only see you for 45 minutes in a week, or sometimes in 2 weeks. So that's literally nothing. So at the end of the day, we are all responsible for what we do. But just meeting and providing therapy and providing this guidance, I feel like sometimes goes a long way for a lot of families who are struggling.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's super important to remember that the differences that you make, the seeds that you plant today, you may never know how that flower grew. I mean, it's so many
Exactly.
things that you do. It's about having this faith that you're doing what you're supposed to do as a professional, and that the people who you're talking to will receive the message when they are ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's not in front of you, you don't get the opportunity to see the fruits of your labor, but it does make a difference to them later, whenever it happens. It's just about faith, right? That's what
Yeah.
I think about having children. You're tending a garden, the fruits of which you're not going to really experience, right? The
Hmm.
whole idea about having a child is, you create them, you nurture them, you guide them, and then poof, they leave the nest and they do what they do. And if we're lucky as parents, we get to experience them for many years and another generation when grandchildren come. And not all of us are fortunate enough to see that, but these are this is the reason why, we do what we do is, and in higher education, it's even more profound because I see most of my students for 4 years and then
Hmm.
off they go. And so with the case of you and I, it's been really a beautiful thing to watch you grow over the years. And I've been able to come back and see, some of the ways that you've grown and developed. And these are the times that you look at to fill in the blanks. I wonder what happened to that person. I wonder how
Hmm.
that effort happened.
Yeah. No, I think it's a long-lasting change that we have to wait for, especially with me, because I work with kids who are in elementary level. So I
Mm,
definitely don't see majority of them for those seeds that I'm planting to work out, but still just
yeah,
helping them with confidence, just helping them with anger management, because there's a lot of that going around these days for younger kids, just struggling with
yeah.
dysregulation and anger. You yourself are a single mother. Tell me more about your kids, and how's your journey been as a single mother? What were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Wow, how long do we have? So I have two boys, and how do I want to start this? I suppose my older boy, we did family therapy with him when he was younger because he had lots of challenges with, like you said, anger management and wasn't taking direction in a way that was consistent with, a positive family environment. So we did some family therapy with him for a while, and he had to forge his own path. He definitely he needed to. He didn't want to listen to guidance, right? And I understood through parenting him that it you can have your ideas of how you want to be a parent, but in a lot of ways, it's wherever your efforts land with the child is individual to the child. Not every child is receptive, and I didn't have the tools I needed to try all the things to reach the him as a young boy. And so we ended up using a therapist in a group situation to help us have a positive, family environment and get him through some of the behavioral challenges that he had. Um, Then, my younger son, he was a little less challenged in that way. I think my older boy had some executive function issues where he wasn't able to regulate his anger and emotions and things. Um, and then ultimately, their father and I divorced, and he moved out and moved away, and that created a different dynamic in the house and was super challenging for a period of time. But through those times, that's when I discovered my own personal power, when I really got into yoga and meditation and some of the explorations that allowed me to sort of develop that side of myself through parenting. It was tough. I did not have a family nearby, so all of my family live about an hour and a half away. And as I inferred earlier, my family does not have the support and education and resources that I think lots of parents have today. So even though I was struggling being a single mom with kids that at least one of my kids had some severe behavioral challenges, I didn't have support of family nearby, and they really didn't have the tools they needed to offer me the guidance. So I ended up creating my own. I doubled down in my community church and made connections there. I leveraged friendships that I had, created what I call the board of directors, my own personal board of directors, who were a bunch of wise women in different phases of life, who I regularly kind of met with in an informal way to figure out what my challenges were, talk it through. But through it all, I've had the same therapist for over a decade, and she's been working with me since I was still married and through the process to kind of mirror what I'm saying and offer positive support and ask really hard questions, encourage me to get into mindfulness, stop and think about what's happening and slow everything down. And that's been key. But over the course of the years, the father of my kids moved to California, and I live in upstate New York when they were about 13 or 14 years old. And my older boy decided to go and live with his father in California. So I effectively lost the day-to-day contact with my eighth grader,
Mhm.
which looking back was an incredible loss. It was like sort of like a mourning period that I had to go through to readapt and to continue investing in a relationship and developing a child who is across the country living in a what ended up being not a very healthy environment also, but facing the decision to support my eighth grader to go and move away or fight my eighth grader to stay against his wishes was a really pivotal time in our relationship. Once he realized that I would support him no matter what he chose, we ended up having a relationship that grew over time. And
Mhm.
now it's a more I guess mutually he's an adult now, so it's hard to, compare, but um we have this respect for each other that I think would have been difficult to come by had we stayed in the same house all those years. So then
Mhm.
I have one boy living with his father in California, and then my and his brother living with me in New York. So that was also a challenge to try and respect the need for me to have my sons be brothers and have a strong fraternal relationship. And for me also to have a continued relationship with my son. I spent a lot of money on at the post office. I would mail him something every week so that he would have something in his hand, from his mother, even if he never read it. I had a lot, that was blind faith for me. Send
Mhm.
it because I didn't know if it was ever got to him or not, and if it, and we'd communicate fairly regularly, but there would be lots of challenges. When divorce happens, it kind of wreaks a family. Lots of things
Mhm.
happen. In the end, though, his younger brother was able to have more space in the house and in my life, so I was able to nurture him in a different and more enriching way. and he's doing well now. He's a junior in college, and his older brother is now living in Pennsylvania, and he's starting college as well. So
No.
everyone has their own path, and it was a huge learning curve for me to try and learn how to parent while parenting. The best metaphor, I'm a big metaphor person if you hadn't figured that out, but it's like changing a tire on a moving car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The car doesn't stop. For you to learn how to
Forever.
do it, you have to do it. And is it best practice? No. But if the car can't stop and it has a flat tire, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So
There's no manual guide.
no, no, and there's no way to tell you how to do it. So
Yeah.
my when my mother got divorced in the 70s, people didn't do that back then, and she had absolutely no manual, right? We were the only family that I knew of that didn't have two parents at home, and so that was a struggle for me. Um, when I got divorced in the 2010s, um, there were a lot of people I knew, sadly, but it meant that I had better resources to face, and society had better resources. The way society allowed my parents to split, um, caused a lot of problems in my family. And so we've come a long way. I don't support or, encourage families to break up. At the same time, I can see now in hindsight that it was a necessary part of my personal development. I needed to be the best mother I could, and
Mm-hmm.
making the decision to do that independently of their father was hard, and it was the right thing to do. I know now.
For sure. And I feel like I can't even imagine how difficult it might have been, but it comes with a lot of liberation and freedom, I feel like. And I'm a firm believer of things happen up for a reason, and that's the way
Hmm.
that the universe guides us into different paths of our own empowerment and our own growth. And hearing up from you, I feel like it led to a lot of growth for yourself, not just personally, professionally, and also just in a lot of different ways for your family, because it also must have definitely helped both of your kids grow up uniquely in different ways and really played up a big role in their upbringing as well. So I'm sorry that you went through it, but I'm also not sorry because I feel like it was meant to happen. And when people sometimes remain stuck in those situations, I feel like it creates much more longer term problems rather than solutions.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right that as you're going through struggles, you often feel, I guess, depressed or destitute, or why is this happening to me? How am I ever going to get X or Y? I don't know how I'm going to go through this. When you have the opportunity to look in the rearview mirror back at that, there are always gifts inside of challenges, right? And I had a lot of challenges, and I often wonder what it would have been like if I had grown up in a family of educated people who had supported my journey, and who had been able to help a little more when I was a single mom, and what would that have been like? Um, and then I think, look at the resilience that I have currently, that I enjoy. Look at the perspective that I have, the gratitude that I have. All of that comes from the hard work of going through those difficulties.
Hmm.
And I think there's a fine line between being pushed so hard with a difficulty that you turned to addictions or other destructive things in your life. So that's where you need the help of a professional. Making sure you get that help is important.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't want to have an easy life either, because if I would have to trade all my hardships for all my gifts, I don't, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I would keep all the
Same.
hardships.
Yeah, because I feel like the hardships are the things that shaped us to what we have
Yes.
become, and they
Yes.
constantly keep shaping us. And as you say, that some people go like it takes people through different paths. Some people adapt what I call unhealthy coping strategies, which
Yes.
is like being feeling like completely powerless, feeling depending on substances, depending on alcohol, depending on different things. And some people alchemize that thing and turn it into and use it as a healthy coping skills in terms of just transforming their life, just bettering their life, just guiding themselves through different pathways or different ventures that they may have not tapped into if they were still living in that relationship. So I feel like it leads in different directions, but whichever direction it leads towards growth, and that's something that we
Mhm.
all need in today's time and age.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point, which is something that you and your organization is doing, Catalyst Coaching. So in terms of for folks who may want to get in touch with you or may want to dive into Catalyst Coaching, what are some of the basic services you folks are providing, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I right now am working one-on-one with individuals. I do small group workshops occasionally. I am about to launch a 6-week program in the springtime that will guide people through habit mastery. I hesitate to use mastery, but at first awareness and using some of the principles of habit formation and behavioral the way people work. Be doing a 6-week workshop. I am considering offering that on Zoom. So joining my email list would be a great way to do that. My website is catalystproconsulting.com, and you'll put that on, I guess, the notes of this.
Mhm.
You can also email me individually if something that I have said sparks you. I do offer initial consultations with people to talk and see whether or not we have a good fit to for me to meet you where you are and to help you get to wherever it is that's next for you. The website is the best way to go right now, as well as email. As an entrepreneur who's new, I am focused on delivering services and value. So I haven't gotten to the point where I have an active Facebook and YouTube and Instagram channel. That is a goal of mine for the future to reach more people that way. In the current situation, I'm still working full time and I'm doing my business in the evenings and the weekends, and hoping as I get closer to retirement to switch that mix up and do a little more of my business and a little less of my day job. But as of now, there's no plan to do that. So one-on-one consultation, a free initial consultation is available to people who have, some motivation to work together, at least to explore what it would look like. And additionally, the blog that I maintain, I'm using resources, and as uncover new tools to help my clients, I'll put them out there on my blog for people to read and use to get hopefully inspired.
What happens in those free consultation calls? What are some of the topics that you touch up with those folks?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's an exploration of what goal, what objective you are trying to achieve. It doesn't need to be goal centric, but in the case, it's not like therapy where you work on whatever comes up. I'm looking for people who have an obstacle that they are challenged with that they need some assistance to overcome. And that can be all kinds of things, but it won't be something that, for example, your mother thinks that you could really use my help, so your mother refers you. There has to be a level of motivation and awareness in the person reaching out. And if they don't have a specific idea, like say they always know they want to run a business and they don't know how to start, or they're having a hard time with a family situation, or they want to retire and they don't know how to do it, or I just need some help figuring out what college to go to. These are all pretty concrete things that we could work on, and those are kind of the doorway. Sometimes the thing that a person thinks they need to work on isn't really the thing. So having something ahead of time to start with is a great way to explore what's really going on. Ultimately, I'm here to serve the person with what they need, which isn't always what they want. So a person may come and work. One of my clients, we may be working together, and I may push them into uncomfortable questions that they don't feel like they make them uncomfortable. That's of service. So I want people who are open-minded, who are willing to challenge the beliefs that they have in the hopes that it's going to get them where they need to go.
Wow, that's very powerful, and I feel like that's something that people of all age need in today's time and age. It's not just something that you need right after college. I feel like it's also something that you need probably when you're in your 30s or in your 40s or in your 50s, because I feel like a lot of people are stuck in jobs that they don't want to do.
Mhm.
And they're still doing that job because it's making their ends meet. It's bringing finances home. They're running their house. They have a family that they have to take care of. So they are feeling a little bit scared about making up that switch. So I feel like it helps them a lot too.
Yes, that's a good number of people that I work with are career shifter, changers. They're feeling okay, but they feel like something's missing. I think actually the COVID-19 pandemic had a lot to do with this awakening. Life coaching has really taken off since the pandemic, and I
Mhm,
think career changing and other aspects are part of that. People want satisfactory, satisfying careers. They want to live on purpose. They no longer content with just doing, making the ends meet. They want to do something important. They realize life is finite and it's important to love what you do.
mhm,
And it's not necessary to have a job that you don't like and go every day. It
mhm.
does require you to stretch and to be vulnerable and to go through all these things. And this is where this is my message is that you don't need to settle.
Mhm.
And if you're willing to do the work, anything's possible.
The main hurdle is that first step. That requires a lot of courage, that first step. But
Mhm.
once you take that first step and you start walking on that path, a lot of doors open up for us. But taking that first step, that courageous step, I feel like that's something that you with Catalyst Coaching are providing for the community, which is really, really, really powerful. In terms of being an entrepreneur, in terms of being a fresh entrepreneur, I feel like it also comes with a lot of challenges.
Mhm. Yeah, it sure does. So I very much value my free time, my choosing activities that have purpose, and I'm a guitar and singer. I am involved in my church. I have my own house. I am the only adult living in this house, so I take care of the snow and the lawn, and I have a life partner who lives about an hour away, and I'm maintaining this beautiful relationship, a long distance, if you will. So all these things are super important to me. Plus, I have a 40-hour a week job, and now I have a business. So the challenge is time. What it does is it comes with I guess the motivation. Like it's the investment in my future self is to go back to something I said. So I get up in the morning. I get up at 5:30 every morning and do a little bit of stretching and meditation to start my day. And then I spend a half hour, 45 minutes working on my business every morning. And then I go to work. And at the end of the day, I come home and if I need to do something, like if I have clients, right? And I need to put them front and center in order for me to serve them the best way. So I have to get out of my head and spend some time getting into their head to do the things I need to do for them to prepare for a meeting or to, review someone's resume, for example, or help them strategize a job search. So it's time. And then I think the way that I do that is first of all, continuing to participate in therapy, which I do, every third week or so right now, more just for maintenance, but to remind myself that this is me being on purpose.
Mhm.
And this is the reward. It's like the work the work that you have to do right now, you don't know, you lose track of the why. So reminding myself of the why, that helping people is really my calling, and that doing it in this way is filling my soul and ultimately will be my career when I retire. And I'm hoping to do this, probably 20 maybe hours a week in when I'm no longer going to work every day. I want to do this with my laptop and I want to be able
Yeah.
to travel to new places to do it. So the other thing I will say is that just like when I was a new first generation college student, I realized that there are tremendous amount of resources to support entrepreneurs. In New York State, we have the Small Business Development Corporation. I do believe that every state has something like this. So I have had a small business advisor for free meet with me, or we meet on Zoom once a month, maybe. And she has helped me fill out paperwork to get the LLC paperwork done. She helps me figure out the QuickBooks and the accounting side of it and getting my checking account set and all of this. Also, my local Chamber of Commerce, and most cities have a Chamber of Commerce that's their whole purpose is to support businesses and growth of business. I have been to two different series for entrepreneurs. The first one was Entrepreneurship 101. It was 3 hours a week on a Friday morning, and I met other entrepreneurs and also learned about sales, marketing, website, um, let's see, employment, which I don't have employees, but they teach about bookkeeping, all these things. And there were grant opportunities as a result of participating in those. So I was able to maximize and get a grant, which helped me get my website together.
Wow.
And then the second series was sponsored by Verizon. It was a digital literacy series. And that one was for entrepreneurs, but also just focused on the digital side, right? So Facebook, website SEO optimization, email, like this sort of marketing side. Participating in that series, which did cost some money, but it was very affordable. Um, that also had a grant attached to it. So I was able to get two business grants in the course of 2024, which honestly, thinking about my schedule, I didn't have the time to make these grants, be what all they could be. But I said yes. But that's the message. Just say yes. It doesn't,
Just say
you
yes.
don't need to know how it's going to work out. I had to take vacation time to go to these seminars. So 3 hours a week, I would work late or work over lunch or like use flex time at work. And I'm grateful that my employer was accommodating for me to do that. So it was a huge commitment. It paid off, and no one else in the seminars that I was in applied for the grants. I don't know why, but this is me maximizing every opportunity that I have. And I would say that's how I've gotten ahead over the years, not taking for granted, being grateful, and exploring every corner of whatever is in front of me.
I
Also,
love,
I can't waste food. Like my mother told me, don't waste food.
yeah.
So it's just very similar.
Sounds like my mother, because that's something that was really, really adamant in her household as well. But no,
Yeah.
I love that for you. I'm so happy for you that you're doing that. And I feel like a lot of it is down to taking action, and a lot of it is also down to learning from your past experiences, because
Hmm.
what you learned, let's say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you're still implementing it and it's still relevant. There are resources out there, and that's something that being a executive director of a nonprofit, I'm learning in today's
Mm,
time, because we rely on all these grants, we rely on donations to keep our services for free and stuff. And when you look into it, there's a lot of fundings outside, but all you have to do is tap into it. But before you tap into it, you have to take action into the work that you are doing. Uh,
yes.
but no,
Yeah, it's a fine balance between doing the work that I love and that I want to be in front of clients. That's what I want, where I want to be.
mm-hmm,
In order to do that, though, you have to build a foundation in the business, right? And
absolutely.
sometimes involves writing grants and doing and other things. So it's a trade-off. It's not easy. It's also not impossible. And I'm actually doing this in a way that is right for me. That's another good message I think I want to leave is I leave so many opportunities on the table at the end of every day. I see 100 things I could do to enhance my business, to find more clients, to get the message out to more people. Um, at the end of the day, whatever I managed to do, I have to have faith was the right thing. And
Mm-hmm,
the things that I didn't do today were not meant. to be done today.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
tomorrow, if they rise to the top, then
Yeah.
so be
Yeah.
it. So be it.
100%. And I feel like one thing that I've heard from all this conversation from you is that you have a lot of multitasking skills, you have a lot of things and projects that you're working out on, but you also have different outlets that are letting you stay re-energized, stay focused, like you mentioned about guitar, singing, your relationship with your church, faith, you spoke about yoga, meditation. Can you speak a little bit more briefly around these areas and how these areas have impacted you, your life, and the struggles that you have been through?
Yeah. All of them, and funny enough, all of them involve um, groups of people and connectedness and relationship. Church community, my faith community, they are first and foremost a group of people who see each other and who connect with each other and notice when you're missing. That those are real people who you can have real relationships with. And it's an organization that does a lot of good work in the community. So our donations for the food pantry and our outreach to shut-ins and these sorts of things. So that's very valuable to me. It fills my cup and also allows me to have connection with other people who help me. So we help each other in that way. The guitar is something I actually do with my partner. So, making music has always been an important part of my life. Singing, I mostly sing. I am not a guitarist, but I'm practicing guitar. Creating something, um, and usually with another person, is a value that I know that I have. I've always loved when a group of people get together and create something amazing that no one of them could have created on their own. So when a group of singers get together and sing a piece, it's amazing. The outcome of it, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, is sort of the vibe that that gives me with that, with the music. And then let's see, what are the other pieces? I didn't tell you I still run. I'm a jogger and I run with a group of ladies. And this is a small community of also people who notice when you're not there, who support one another. Most of them are older than I am, so I get to feel like I'm fast. That's nice. But exercise and enjoying the environment and fresh air is really key to my wellness, as well as my daily morning meditation and yoga practice that I don't miss, even if it's for 5 minutes. Literally, I'll do it for 5 minutes. If that's all I have. Sometimes all I have is a singing bowl, and I just ring it with a metal mallet or with a wooden mallet, and that's enough. Like as long as I do something to center myself in the morning, I'm good for the day. But that's a commitment that I have to my own well-being. Like I'm going to give this gift to myself today, no matter how crazy the rest of the day is going to be.
Well,
Did I miss something? I think you asked about a bunch of things.
no, I think you covered all of them. I think you're
Okay.
definitely there, and I feel like all of them are related to people, but they're also related to feeling a sense of community and being grounded. Because I
Yeah.
think all those things, when even when you're out for a jog or when you're at the church with your community or when you're practicing meditation, yoga, I feel like all of it leads to feeling grounded.
Yeah. That is 100% true, especially when there's so many things to do. It's such a gift to just be.
Hmm.
And it's something that I've noticed. I actually am also a West African drummer. I do djembe drumming. And
Wow. You
when
do
you're
everything, Michelle. You do everything.
right now, the drumming is on hiatus because my teachers had a baby, but that's fair.
I remember you
So
also did play one of our local drums, like the Pakistani drums. Someone, I guess, from the exchange
yeah,
students brought it for you, and you tuned
yeah,
it.
yep, for sure, for sure. There is nothing like it. I mean, I there are times when you know it's the right thing for you to do when you lose track of time
Hmm.
and you really don't even you detached from the outcome. Like, I don't care how this sounds. I don't care if people enjoy it who are here. All I know is me and this drum are connected right now, and this is It's not even me. It's what I say is it's God working through me. When I sing at church in front of people, it's incredibly freeing, Zishan, because I don't feel like I'm performing. I feel like I'm allowing the Spirit to move through me. And if it
Mm-hmm.
comes out that today is the day that I'm meant to show everybody what humility is, then that's fine. If it comes out that today is the day that I am meant to show what the spirit can do working through an open human being, then I'm fine with that. So it might be a perfect song. It might be I forget the words, but I detach from that outcome and
Mm,
let it flow. It's
yeah.
incredibly freeing to be at a place in my life where I know I've experienced that and I know how to do it and I strive to replicate it with the drumming. It's easier in creativity for me right now, and I'm starting to feel it with working with my clients to try and let go and come open, incredibly open, but I also feel compelled to come prepared. So it's this back and forth with me to be prepared enough, but also to be open and to just trust that I've got what I need to let it go.
That before we wrap up, there's one thing that I've heard constantly throughout our recording today is the use of spirit. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What is spirit to you? What does that mean for you? And how would you define that?
It's interesting and complex topic for me. Religion and spirituality are very different for me. My family has a history of religion being point of contention, and so when I grew up and was able to have my own faith, I have what I call flexi faith, which is spirituality not attached to a specific brand of religion. All of my leanings are within Christianity, so that's the background I'm speaking from. But I go to a community church that's actually a blend of two different faiths together, which is interesting and completely fits what I have. Also, I've taken a lot of time studying Zen and meditation, and I was inspired by Dr. Wayne Dyer back in the day and mindfulness-based stress reduction, John Kabat-Zinn, some other folks. They have all filled this gap, what I call my spirituality. And it's I don't have to go to a building. I can be walking in the woods to feel spiritual. I can be playing a drum. I can be driving to work. It's really about a feeling that I have to have what I was saying before, the openness that whatever is meant for me today is not my job to make it happen. I have to do the things that I need to do to be prepared. But whatever ultimately happens is not my doing.
Mm-hmm.
The out it, the Zen principle that I attach this to is simply put, detaching from the outcome. So giving everything that I have, doing my best to prepare, and then if it is accepted by you or the people that I'm with, great. If they have issues with it, then it wasn't meant for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Mm-hmm.
was meant for me to offer. It just wasn't meant for them to receive. And I think that if more people can detach from the outcome and be confident in what they're giving, the world would be a better place. People would be less offended,
For sure.
right? There would be less offense. In fact, I've come to a point where you cannot offend me. I do not have so much attachment to what I am and who I am, because if you are offended by something I did or said, it really says more about you
Mm-hmm.
as someone who offends easily than me, who is someone who's out there. So yes, I don't go around doing things that I know are offensive, but I really do not have an attachment to outcome anymore. So if you apply for a job, for example, you're really attached to the outcome, you're going to be affected negatively if you don't get a call back for that job.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you just put it out there and detach from the outcome and give it up to spirit, a lot of people say, give it up to God, give it to God. I just say it's a universal energy to me. And my version of the universal energy is God. A lot of names for God, Yahweh, Allah, you name it. There are all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
names. Um, To me, it does not matter what the name is. It matters that it's this spirit that I know is there. And
Yeah.
when I tap into it, I feel it. That's when I'm drumming. That's when I've let go of my uh, talent when I'm singing in front of a group of people, which, by the way, I was a chorus member. I was never going to be a soloist.
I resonate a lot with what you just mentioned about spirituality and about the connection and being guilt-free in that sense. I think that's really powerful, and that's again going back to it. It's that mindset shift that you need to do for yourself, and that's something that I also very strongly believe in. But lastly, before we wrap up, if, after overcoming all of your own challenges, forging up a path for yourself, what are some of the advice that you would give to our listeners on what's that one small step that they can take today to begin rewriting their own story?
Say yes.
Say yes.
Simple, simple and complex. Say yes. Do something. You don't need to have it all figured out in order to take the first step to say yes.
Yeah.
Because the the second step you could say no. But if you don't say yes, you'll never know. So you don't have to have it all figured out before starting.
Give it a
And
try.
yeah, give it a try. Say there's a book called The Answer to How is Yes, I think. The answer to
Hmm.
how is yes. Say yes. Give it a try. Step out there. And if you need someone, if you need an accountability partner, someone to be your cheerleaders, if you will, you can see a therapist, you can hire a coach, you can use friends and family, the right ones anyway.
Hmm.
But do it because the world needs more people who are living their purpose. The world needs more people who are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And
100%.
if you don't know what it is and you need a helper, find one. Find one. But you don't need to settle.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's very important. You don't need to settle and you can align up with your passions, your interests, your energies, and it's just tapping into those. But again, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me today at We Are Mentally United podcast. It was a pleasure speaking with you and connecting with you today.
I'm so happy to have been asked and really looking forward to watching all the great things that Mentally United is doing and continues to do. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. And likewise, and hopefully we can connect up soon again for an episode two and talk more about things that can impact people, things that can inspire people, and just cover up more of those topics. But again, thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you well and I wish you all the very best.
You're welcome. And you too. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.